So we're here on the first of what we hope will be many video casts and conversations with the team over at Carvoyant, and they're doing some really interesting stuff. So we're here with Bret, Tobey, and with Renz Kuipers, and we're going to go through a couple of topics today, and not sure how long it'll last or how interactive it'll be, but we'll try and keep it as interactive as possible and give everybody some good information. How you doing, Bret? How you doing, Renz?
Doing well.
Doing well.
It sounds like we can hear everybody. Yeah, we get peppered with all kinds of questions about connected cars. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And especially since Carvoyant is hardware neutral, we end up being kind of the most ecumenical folks in the space. So we have a lot of perspective and not a lot of dog in the hunt on some of these things. So it's fun to talk about from the side.
Yeah, it's a different kind of model.
Yeah, it's we like however the car gets connected, because we're all about, we want that data to flow, and it's going to be a mix of new cars, and there's a lot of buzz this week at the Chicago Auto Show and some other stuff, and then what's going on in the aftermarket. I mean, cars are what makes people mobile, so we really want to do what we can to help developers get started today and not wait for some aspirational dream of what comes down the pipe over the next 2 to 3 years.
Right, and a lot of the focus lately has been on on Tesla and some of these newer, more expensive smart cars, but the real business isn't there, is it?
Well, for the record, we like Tesla. So
there are at least 6 of them in my town.
It's a very real opportunity working with the new cars, but you just simply look at the math around how fast do people buy cars, how much time do they spend in their cars. There's a huge opportunity, I would say, over the course of the next 3 to 4 years. The bulk of the adoption is really going to be in the aftermarket, and that'll start to shift over time. But even the thing is, 4 or 5 years from now, it'll still be in the aftermarket, because those cars that are coming out right now, people are going to want some different things with them. So it's always going to be a mix of the two. And what's really fun is that the automakers are driving a lot of really innovative things going on inside the vehicle. So what's going on with that in-vehicle experience? And that's one of the reasons why we really focus on the outbound data flow. So getting the car connected the rest of your life, because I like what's going on in the vehicle. There are a lot of smart people working on that. We're trying to open up the taps a little bit broader, a little bit more ecumenical for how do you get your car to talk to your house? What's the car doing from a finance perspective? There's some interesting stuff that people want to do with loyalty or service, all kinds of stuff. So,
and Renz, how does that work from a product perspective?
In terms of getting the vehicles connected, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff we hear about is already built into the cars, and you're not necessarily building it in, right?
No, right. It's getting the vehicles retrofitted effectively, which is a simple little device. Plugs into any vehicle built since '96. That data streams to our servers, and what also makes us a unique proposition is we consider that data to be the driver's data. We're just helping them aggregate that data and use that data to enable different applications that make the most sense for them.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Bret.
Oh no, I was about to say it, and it's actually one of the things, because we're dealing with more data, those connecting partners. Sometimes you can get that little device from Carvoyant or through one of our developer partners, actually, is probably who it's going to come through. And sometimes it's coming from a connecting partner, like some of the insurance companies, other folks, commercial fleets we work with. So what they can do is they can actually funnel more data into the cloud, where the driver can then use it beyond, because there are things that your insurance company probably doesn't want to know, or doesn't want to hassle with. But that might be really, really valuable for the driver, and in turn that makes it valuable for the relationship with the insurer, commercial fleet operator, whoever it happens to be. So we just like them all connected, and then we'll see what else the developers can do, what kind of fun we can have with it.
So I mean, Carvoyant's an enabler.
Yeah. Yep. Just some very unsexy data plumbing between all these different connected car implementations. So
unsexy is good. If you use the tech, the cliched tech terminology, you guys are arm merchants.
There you go.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. I don't know. It's almost like lining kids up with Legos and seeing what they do. There's some really cool stuff that some developers are doing right now that we'll probably talk about in the next few weeks. Actually, there's some releases coming up But Mike, you had some questions that you wanted to, some stuff's been going on this week for connected cars. What, you want to jump into that?
Yeah, I mean, right now we've got starting off in frigid, what are they calling it? Chicago Beria or whatever it is right now.
Ooh,
Out
yeah.
in Chicago, the Auto Week's opening up. What do you guys expect to see out there?
A lot of infotainment, right? In-vehicle connection. And, of course, I think there's always the talk about the autonomous car type. And when people think of connected cars, that seems to be where the mindset and the buzz really focuses. And that's what makes our proposition quite unique.
But you're not just talking about, connected cars, communicating, hey, what radio station is the guy next to me playing in traffic, right?
Well, yeah, some of it's that social stuff, and yeah, it's interesting because the in-vehicle experience. I mean, I think there's a strong case to be made for a little bit of control over the. I don't want somebody watching Netflix in the dashboard, and so you see a lot of the same stuff like Pandora, Stitcher, Slacker, all. I love all three of those. Yeah, I want them in my dashboard, but there's some people who are starting to do some innovative stuff. So you've got Glimpse, that does some stuff with location-based sharing. The automakers are still, they're coming along. We're having some, fun talking to those folks about how they want to open up. But being able to curate, what does that experience look like? Audi got a lot of grief for this funny joystick thing that they're doing. I think you're going to see a lot of iteration, almost even between the car shows, just about how people communicate what is a connected car. So it'll be interesting to see if the stories change between CES, Detroit, LA Auto Show, and Chicago Auto Show, just as they're refining it, because they're just not used to moving this fast. It's startups and developers, tech companies move this fast all the time. For automakers to be refining and rolling stuff out as fast as they are, it'll be interesting. And there's also a lot of aftermarket folks talking about connected cars. So you've got, Harman doing stuff, Pioneer doing stuff. They're not just waiting on the automakers to do stuff. They're pushing it through the head unit. There's some interesting. So you got the MirrorLink Car Connectivity Consortium showing some stuff off Chicago Auto Show. Connected World magazine. Actually, Renz, that was we got that award last year for their value chain innovation. So they're having a connected car exposition and conference there in conjunction with the auto show. I think people are starting to realize that the connectivity is more part of the automotive ownership experience, and it's having a bigger and bigger role. I don't know if anybody's going to choose their car because it's Android or iOS enabled just yet. I think that's not quite where we're going, but maybe 5-6 years down the road. But right now, everybody wants to make sure you get good quality, safe entertainment, good quality information, so that whether it's coming off of the vehicle bus or something even outside of the car, like what's the weather and how's that going to affect things. It's interesting, but they're definitely pushing the connected car more and more aggressively just in the last 6 months. Every automaker is.
Well, it used to be that okay, Renz.
Yeah, I was just going to say a lot of that focus continues to be in vehicle, though. And, we think just in talking to consumers and connecting partners, they're not missing the mark, but there's a big opportunity being left on the table, and that's what we're scooping up, saying, hey, let's get that car connected to the rest of the consumer's lives.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why the automakers are talking with us, is that we have, they're that driving experience. I mean, with BMW's tagline, it's about what's going on inside the vehicle, so it's natural for them to focus on that, to focus on the IVI or the in-vehicle infotainment, so that their user experience is when you're sitting behind the steering wheel, maybe in the passenger back seat, but they're looking for that user experience. So, not going to fault them for driving there first, and it's also not in their nature to engage with developers. I mean, if you guys ever want to see kind of the disparity, go check out some of the automakers, applications for, literally the application process for approval for getting into the stack is not what you would normally see. And I'm going to be kind of kind, because we're having some good conversations with the automakers, so I don't want to throw too many darts. But they're just not used to doing that kind of innovation between things that we see in the API economy all the time.
Well,
I mean, it's just
their traditional developer base were, hackers that would, chip at most they could do is chip the car to make it go a little faster, run a little bit better. And now what I'm hearing that Carvoyant's doing is opening that developer world, for the automakers up to, anybody that's ever coded for the internet.
Yeah, and that's what we did was we looked at this and we said, there's some fun stuff we can do on the CAN bus. That's actually kind of how we got into this. Was my wife was saying, hey, you've got all these Canoe, crazy CAN tools, high-end professional stuff. I mean, those guys who are chipping their cars for performance, it's a very small slice of the population and the even smaller slice of the developer population. And we said, well, what happens if we could let everybody play with the data about connected cars? So that's where we get this kind of really broad horizontal normalization across these different silos. And it's really enabling some neat things. These guys are really, I've been just flat out completely caught off guard by some of the stuff people have done in a really nice way. But the idea is that, look, if you can do a mashup of a few different APIs, if that's the level of coding capability you've got, then you're totally capable of tapping into what we're doing with the REST API and getting some vehicle data going.
And you're normalizing it the same way Twilio normalized the telco networks, right? Yeah,
if we hide a lot of the just abstracting all that complexity, so somebody could still go down deep. It's not about oh my gosh, you get dumbed down by going through Carvoyant. It's look, you get started, and we're hearing that we're knocking 6 to 12 months off people's development cycles. I mean, it takes us, just negotiating the telco stuff is, that's 6 months right there. So, no, it's fun seeing how fast people are getting projects up and going now. So we've got some stuff that people were launching in February that they started in late November. So that's and then you factor in the holidays. So you got 2 months, from first code to product launch. You couldn't do that with connected cars. We couldn't do it 2 years ago, and it's only been 2 years worth of work that is letting us help other people get that done. So
makes old cars new again.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that the automakers can't operate in that kind of cycle. Their core competency is bending metal and making it safe, and that design factor alone just takes too much time to negotiate the quick turnaround that developers can do in the tech space.
And we don't necessarily want them. I mean, there were some guys who made some noise this week about some hacking.
Right. The CAN hacking tool, right?
Yep. Which and I'm not gonna knock the security team. Kudos to them for highlighting that. But I mean, that CAN hacking tool is, that's a 10-year-old play. It's we did that 10 years ago. So the CAN bus has been around, and the last thing I did before Carvoyant, we were working with the CAN bus. So CAN is used in factory automation. It's used in building security. All over the place. So there's an international standards body. So it's not like there's some special sauce that's secret that's buried in the cars. CAN is a great network bus. And it seemed kind of silly to me when people were talking about, all you have to do is gain access to the car. It's like, well, it's kind of like saying once you're inside the house, it's really easy to rob it. I'm like, well, yeah, it is. There's a lot of room for improvement on the security side of things. And I think we're going to see more and more attention as companies like Carvoyant and others start to say, well, here's things you can do. One of the nice things about working through a normalization layer is that it makes it easier to see what's going on, good and bad.
Sort of the open source, sort of the traditional tech open source play.
Yeah, more eyes, on the stack. So that's what we're, as we start to normalize, you can start to see, well, this is a, normal behavior, abnormal behavior, and we can see that across a broader slice. And that's not just Carvoyant. That's one of the things that we look forward to opening up a little bit later on this year, is that getting, select, vetted folks, looking at, what can we do to improve that model overall. So it's, but it's kind of like, putting a really great, one of those, outstanding new locks. So you got Locktron, August Smart Locks, some other folks who are rolling some nice new locks. If you have that right next to a sliding glass door, the lock just has to be stronger than a brick through the window. Same thing with the CAN security. if you're going to jimmy the door and you're in the car and you're hot wiring it, well, guess what? You've already done the damage. You're inside the vault already. So I think it's going to be good to get more visibility. I definitely don't. I'm not too worried about the CAN hacking tool. Just simply because it's been out there for so long.
Right.
And you got to splice into the CAN. I mean, even if you've got the quick connects, you still got to get into the car. If a bad guy's in your car already, you've got bigger problems than, gee, what can they do remotely? So
Man, they missed a marketing opportunity. They should have called it the CAN opener.
Oh man, I like that. So that's yeah. I mean, except for the fact they want to discourage raw CAN hacking. that's an awesome thing. So yeah, no, it's and that CAN being able to hack. So those guys, I think they're presenting at European DEF CON or something.
I think it is.
Yeah, there's an article on Forbes. We'll have to put that in the links at the bottom. But there's been a few
Black
things.
Hat Asia.
Black Hat Asia. Okay.
Yeah.
There was the guys who are this guy's at DEF CON last year. We did some presentations.
Right.
There's some definite things that Renz, you were just talking about the automakers, their core competency. I think it'll be good seeing where things go with the Open Auto Alliance or MirrorLink or some of these other connectivity consortiums. I mean, it's always interesting when somebody's got a vested interest in pushing their product and their agenda. Sometimes you paper over some stuff, but the more you bring in people from the outside, and understandably at the early stages of any of these industry kind of, how are we going to sing Kumbaya and work together? It's the big players who've got a vested economic stake, but the systems that work well and sustain over time are the ones that percolate out into the broader community. Because as sharp as those folks are at the big groups, it's somebody like this Spanish team that's going to be able to peel back and say, you know what, you missed this. So many eyes on the code always makes me happier as a security guy. So we're definitely we got our fair share of security paranoia. Renz, would you say that?
Of course.
So privacy fanatics and security paranoia at Carvoyant. So.
Yeah, we'll get to the privacy in a second. That's definitely something that I want to ask you guys about. But the other thing that I want to talk about was, it goes back to the vehicle-to-vehicle communication that Renz was talking about, and how it was primarily at this point entertainment related. But there have been a couple of stories recently about car-to-car communication or vehicle-to-vehicle communication that go beyond, they go beyond the entertainment, and it goes more towards, I guess for the lack of a better term, safety.
Yeah.
Almost borderline monorail-like.
Well,
and what's interesting with that whole idea is the new vehicles coming out will start to have that connectivity, but it's only so good when 1 out of 50 cars is able to talk to one another, right? Mm-hmm. So we need a way to backfill that in, and again, it's the retrofit so that the dumb cars, so to speak, can talk to the smart cars.
Right, because right now you've got Mercedes and a couple of the others that have the collision avoidance systems that are sensor-based, really.
Right.
And they're interacting with with dumb objects versus other intelligent vehicles that are out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because when you take a look at like vehicle-to-vehicle communication for social was something you'd mentioned before. Like, what's the guy doing next to me?
Yeah.
That's some people are going to do some pretty neat stuff around that. I think some of it's going to be really, really fluffy, like a lot of the fluffy social apps we have on the app stores.
I think you're being generous with the word fluffy, by the way.
I want some of those fluffy developers to grow up a little bit and do some real meaty stuff. But what they crank out when they're 17 is not what they crank out when they're 19 or 20, or 30 or 40.
Yep.
That it goes to that adoption cycle. You're going to have just kind of like driverless cars. We're going to have assisted driving long before we get full autonomous vehicles. And in the split second that it takes to apply a brake faster than a human can pay attention, that's where it really probably does have to be built in at the factory. Trying to deploy that like today in the aftermarket would be kind of problematic. But I suspect that what we'll see over the course of the next couple of years, just you look how fast electronics is accelerating, and some of the hardware, device manufacturers that we already abstract, I bet you those guys are not very far from being able to employ some of that vehicle-to-vehicle communication frameworks. So they came out, so that it was just over a year, I think, that they've been running this pilot program, and the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration came out with the recommendations. So now we've got in the U.S. a regulatory driver, and that hasn't been fully approved or I mean, there's still so much that is, it's got to make its way in the supply chain. So they want to have it happen as soon as possible. And the academics and the safety guys, I applaud them for pushing as hard as they can. Practical reality is it's still going to take a while to get there, but it would be awesome to take that same thing that we're doing to save lives and then see, well, what other aspects. Some of it's going to be fluffy, but some of it's going to be good. Traffic light timing, being able to have the car talk to the lights, so not counting on the sensors in the road that you have to drive back and forth over. I mean, pedestrians get clipped all the time with that stuff. It's there's a lot of extra benefits, traffic flow. So some stuff that we can enable today, and some stuff that's going to get better as the vehicles are talking. Because right now you have to go to the cloud. There's no other place to do that data normalization. Mm-hmm. And even with this first wave of vehicle to vehicle, it's going to be pretty skinny on what you can do vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure. But pump that data into the cloud, you get a little bit of a lag time, but it's still lag time's too long to turn the brakes on, mm-hmm. but it's not too long to turn the light. So I think there's a lot of potential there, but we'll have to watch that one, because in Europe they've got e-call that's going in place where every new vehicle has to have the ability to call emergency responders when they get into a wreck. I think there's actually one startup that's doing something like that, with just, hey, we'll call you if you get into an accident. I think that's going to become one of those background functionalities that everybody adopts. Mm-hmm. You'll see that popping up in all kinds of connected car applications, from Carvoyant or for some other folks. So, it'll be interesting to watch that progression of the vehicle to cloud kind of come back and compressing the vehicle to infrastructure. But what do you think, Renz? Probably realistically 36 months or so before that becomes meaningful?
Yeah, so, at best, right.
Yeah, so I think there might be some guys doing that on the aftermarket faster than you see it hitting all the cars.
So we've got about 8 minutes left, and I want to hit, and I'm sure we can go over 8 minutes on this last topic. Privacy.
Yay!
Big brother, here we go.
Yeah, we like privacy, actually.
Yeah.
Right. So why do you like privacy? Right. I mean,
well, I think Renz and Matt and myself and the other guys at Carvoyant all have different experiences where you're working at a large organization and you're working with some very trusted sets of data and information. I mean, I've done work in identity and security and in privacy that goes back a decade, and it's so easy to say, wow, there's all this data that's valuable, but then even if you're not, you don't have to be bad, you just have to be a little bit sloppy, and all of a sudden we see information leaking out there. And that's one of the reasons we baked the API access in for the drivers mm-hmm. before the developers, because if you bake that into the core product, you bake this honesty and control into the core product, it's really hard to pull it back later. It's very hard to become more open after you're closed. Mm-hmm. If the driver's in control of their own data first, then the driver can decide when they're going to turn that tap on and off. And we want to give them some fine-grained controls. Go ahead, Renz.
And there's a movement out there afoot. The concept is vendor relationship management, where it's the inverse of CRM, where the vendors in CRM buy your data and hit you when they think you need something. The inverse, VRM, where the consumer owns their data and they raise their hand saying, hey, I have a need, propose your offer to me now that I actually need something. That's where we say it's the consumer's data. They need to manage that and use it to the best of for their advantage, and not to our advantage to continue to spam them. And we think the consumer continues to get more intelligent on that data and want to manage that process better.
So you guys are pretty unique in that you're thinking of consumer owns the data first.
Well,
Correct.
we it's funny because we philosophically, the ideology was there first, but then the more we dug into the economics, we're like, well, wait a minute, we don't have to be pariah. We can actually deliver better business with VRM, with the idea of, like, because the consumer isn't only making, I've got a Ford and a Toyota and a Chevy floating around our house, and I'm not making decisions only on Toyota or only on Ford. I mean, you make your decisions across these different domains and vendors. So letting the consumer be in control of their data and push that out, like, we're a tool for the driver. It's not Carvoyant has this data and we can go elsewhere. We do some metadata and some abstraction of it, but at the end of the day, it's the driver has to allow the developer or the partner to share the data, and it's the only way that we can engage. So when what the driver's relationship is with a connecting partner, that's before they get to us. Once the information is in our custody, to be good stewards, we have to assume that it's the drivers and help them engage and be that kind of point of control. It's the economics are still something that a lot of folks are having to wrap their head around, but the quality of the data that we're generating with permission is much richer. We literally have some of our partners going, I don't know how much that's worth because we're paying this much for the lousy data, and this is better. But it's this active engagement that's kind of got people scratching their heads.
Yeah, so really, you're changing the whole economics of consumer data then. At least,
and it's not,
and probably one of the next big areas.
And it's not just us. There's some real good folks. So we're members of the Personal Data Ecosystem Consortium. There's a group that we've been working with, personally for years. The Internet Identity Workshop and some other offshoots there. We're really looking at, well, now that we've got this great framework of OAuth and delegated authentication and access, how do we apply that to specific flows of information to say, well, I want to share my information about this or that. So I would say that we're definitely the most aggressive with automotive data, hands down. But there are other people, like-minded folks out there, and this is not just small startups, but there's some big folks, and I think the SOPA and PIPA efforts from a couple years ago. There's exactly. There's a similar pushback against some of this mass surveillance. There's the Day We Fight Back.
Yeah, that's coming up, isn't it?
That's coming up next week.
Next February 11th.
Is it the 11th?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
3 days, according to their ticker, it's 3 days, 15 hours, 39 minutes, and 41 seconds left.
You guys will. I'll still be in Hades. You'll have to tell me how that fight back goes. But it's funny because connected cars really have the opportunity for, like, awesome social good to understand, like, where people are going, and it's also got the opportunity for awesome social sloppiness. Just to say, oh, we've got all this data, and we can use it for X. It concerns me what some people might do with it, but at the same time, it'd be awesome if we could let drivers opt into better traffic information for the folks right around them. That'd be huge.
Yeah,
so.
I did a post on that the other day where I'm of a mindset that you can make money by doing what's right. Doesn't just have to be for profit. You can do what's right and still do well.
Yeah.
On that. So to end it, I want to find out from you guys, where do we see you next? Where are you guys going to start showing up?
We did our first public event was the launch hackathon. Well, semi-public. We were at TechCrunch Disrupt in September, talking, but we were being a little bit coy about some of the stuff we're doing with the API because we were keeping that skinny. So we did Launch Hackathon in November, and we'll be back at the Launch Festival and Hackathon in San Francisco. That's February 21st to the 23rd for Launch Hackathon.
Great.
The Launch Festival is right after that. We're going to be Edmunds Automotive is having an event down in Los Angeles. We'll be there.
Called Hackamotive.
Hackamotive.
Where it's effectively hacking the automotive industry. Not so much hack a car, it's Hackamotive. And they're looking at new ways to improve the car buying experience. And we're going to be there providing our data set to mash up with their data set and see how that can be improved.
And then you guys
locally here in Tampa, we're going to be Bright House Networks has a regional business award, and we are one of the finalists for an award there, and that is announced, I think, the 28th of February.
Yeah, I think there's an event. You'll hit our website, but is it February 18th at there's the live pitch event, and then there's the awards after that. So
yeah,
and then South by.
Yeah, you'll be in, if I understand correctly, you'll be back with Edmonds in my old stomping grounds, Mashery's Circus Mashimus tent.
Yes,
indeedish.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. So
make sure you get one of the T-shirts. They've got some good stuff.
Yeah, and
there.
there's some folks we work with that are going to be there
I
doing
plan
some
on
stuff.
packing no shirts.
You won't need them.
Yeah,
You won't need them.
I think I'll get a lot of them.
Well, Renz, we're going to be packing shirts. We're just not going to be taking home the same ones we brought. So
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
yeah, so we'll drop Lorinda and some of those other folks at Mashery a note. But catching up, there's a lot of, and then we'll be doing some more stuff after that. But I think post South by Southwest, we're going to need 3 or 4 days to catch up, and then we've got some good code releases around the API coming out.
Great.
So we'll get some more toys for developers to play with, and also be making some noise over the course of February and March with some products being released that have been built on top of Carvoyant. So there's a nice backlog building now of developers and integrations. And it's not, the nice thing is it's not all apps.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes it's just the vehicle anticipating what you need next. So this anticipatory computing, like, hey, you probably want to turn off your lights and lock the doors.
Good.
So
Well, big February coming up. I enjoyed the conversation today with both of you, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
sure.
And we'll do this again. Try and do this again next week and see what else is happening in the world of cars and developers.
Yeah, we can dig into some of the stuff from Chicago.
That sounds
in
good.
detail. So
As
perfect.
they dig out.
yeah, assuming all the connected car folks actually make it. And,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I will leave it at that because there's no way to top that line. All right, great. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, guys. You got
See
it.
you guys.